And click go live.
No, just let me see first.
Oh, well, I've clicked it.
Okay.
Okay, we haven't got very long, guys, so we'll start. Good morning. It does feel like it wasn't that long ago in some way since we sat here before Christmas speaking to you about preparing for your trials that were supposed to happen in January. Obviously, a lot has happened since then, a lot has changed. But we are now still in exactly the same position in that we need to prepare for those trials. So some of you did a load of work over Christmas, which is brilliant, and that is sort of banked, and you can use that and go and refresh yourself with that. But you will have quite a bit to do over the coming weeks. I imagine in most of your lessons you will have started revision, okay? Certainly in some of your subjects already, you will have received topic lists or specifications with highlighted topics that you need to focus your revision on over the holidays. You will be getting those in all subjects, so that will hopefully really help you. In tutorials, you will hopefully be working on, or at least setting out a structure like you did before Christmas, of a revision timetable as well to help you over Easter. Okay? I'm going to pass over to Mr. Suckle now, who's going to just sort of recap and talk to you about some of the revision techniques that you might want to use.
Thank you very much. Morning, everyone. So I'm going to go through something that I tend to deliver every year. I always change it slightly, but your tutors will have maybe heard this before, and some of you may have seen this before on the library revision kit webpage. So this is a quick guide to effective revision. And these slides will be sent electronically to you. And again, all material is available on the dcslibrary.com website. So on 2nd of September 2019, you walked through the door, you probably sat here on that day, and you embarked on 10 or so GCSE courses. And it's a year and a half later. So that's about 48.5 million seconds later. And here you are. And of course, it's not been the most usual 48.5 million seconds, though you might have felt that you felt every single second of that 48.5 million, because it included this. It included March 2020 to now, which has been called many different things, and there's been many different words that have been coined along the way. But I quite like the phrase that it was a year of missing. But you know this. You know this is the situation, and things are somewhat different, and you're dealing with that. But you may be feeling some kind of way about it. You might be feeling hyper. I'd be surprised if this was everyone in the room, but you might have this kind of like hyper energy as you approach this new time. You might be feeling the fear, and that would be very understandable. And even more understandable, you might be feeling very drained. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was a combination of all three. And I suggest 3 remedies for this. So the first one, and I normally always start with this, is the idea of managing your mindset. The idea that you really have to face yourself as someone in a challenging position. It's going to be a stressful position, and you're going to have to be kind to yourself, but you're also going to have to exert as much self-control as you can. I doubt you will achieve this kind of look, where you're very zen and everything's fine, and more likely you're feeling a little bit like this, like there's a ticking time bomb that you're trying to defuse. But I want to say a little bit about ways to conceive of your mindset at the moment, the way you're feeling. Firstly, and this is my understanding, and it's probably not very in-depth, but neurochemically, there's not that much difference between feeling anxious and feeling energized. It's connected to the same systems. And if you can, try to use that sense of anxiety to be the energy that drives you. So try to convert it into a sort of positive energy. You might want to think about the idea that a comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing really grows there. And it's actually when you're outside of your comfort zone that really good learning takes place, that you're needing to push and challenge yourself in that regard. In this graphic here, you've got the kind of danger zone on the outside, and it's important to recognize that too much stress is going to overload and impede your cognition and your well-being. And that's going to be a problem. So you're going to have to find this kind of balance between the two, but you're going to have to kind of manage your mindset. And a good way to managing your mindset and keeping control of any sense of anxiety, managing your energy, is probably to keep your eyes on the prize. And there's some real prizes at stake here, really good things. Firstly, it's time to level up. I wouldn't be surprised at all if you felt you had outgrown the fifth form, you'd outgrown the kind of lower, the middle school, and you're ready for your next steps. And so it's very much time to level up, and that's very exciting because sixth form life, whether it's here or in a college somewhere else, you start getting more power, you start getting more agency, and you feel more independent. And those are all really good things that everyone talks about. And it's also time to bank that learning into qualifications that no one can take away. They are fixed, they're yours, you can take them on with you later into life. But, of course, it should be said that you do want to achieve these GCSEs, particularly in maths and English language. These are really vital for accessing certain next steps. And you know this, but you'll want to be concentrating on those. You'll be wanting to concentrate on your whole GCSE profile, and also increasingly science, because universities and career paths do care. They're not the be-all and end-all, but you do want to hit that level. And ideally, you want to get to certain levels that allow you to open up possibilities later. And the third thing you can do, and maybe, kind of in some ways the most useful to you, is you can be prepared. So preparation before Easter, which I imagine you are doing, this is not a surprise to you, you want to be gathering your materials. You want to be preparing for these 3 weeks over Easter that are going to be quite important to you, because right after Easter, you've got your trial weeks. And those trial weeks are going to be a really useful data point for your centre assessed grades. I think I'm right in saying that it's not really a point where there's not an absolute failure that could happen in these trials, but they are opportunities to succeed, opportunities to really show what you can do. And you really want to try to seize those opportunities. And what you're going to want is you want to have all your materials at your fingertips. So you want updated specified content. Now, I'm going to talk about this in a minute, and Miss Donaldson mentioned this. Normally, I would advise you to know everything that's going to happen in terms of your subject areas, to know all of the subjects you need to be covered. But it may be that might be condensed. It may be that some things have been put to one side to make things more manageable. And you need to work with your teachers to work out what that is. You need to have a good idea of what's coming up in the trials if you can. So you want to create those. And those are very useful for things like knowledge audits, which I'm going to speak about in a second. You want all your learning materials. You want your folders, your textbooks, you want access to your online documents. And you want as many past papers and mark schemes as you can handle. And there's 10 days for you to get all that together, if you haven't got that together already. But the really best preparation is really effective revision. And you could break this down to 3 different parts. Planning what, when, and how to study, developing understanding, and strengthening and applying recall. And those really bring you into a different position and into a different level of confidence if you can manage all 3 of those. So what really works? What do successful exam takers do? Successful revision is different for different people. But you need to know yourself, and you need to know when to change. It's best when it's active and not passive, and it's best when it's progressive and not isolated. And it should build upon itself through review and practice. So planning what, when, and how to study. Now, the single best strategy studies seem to show is the idea of spacing out that practice. So you need to if you can space out your revision over time, you space out your study over time, you can actually spend your time revising less, but achieving more, instead of, say, the mass practice, if you clump it all together near at the time. So you really want to try to space things out, which means it's time to plan your revision program. You have 35 days before your trial exams. Even if we spoke about that generously, that would be maybe 30 days with days off. And you may have 10 subjects. So theoretically, that's 3 days per subject. And it's probably even less than that. And a revision plan helps it all fit it all in. Now, I know probably you have a kind of a reaction to me saying revision plans. I know they're not everyone's cup of tea, and they don't, and many people feel that they don't work for them. But you are going to have to come up with some kind of program, some kind of way of fitting it all in. So the revision planner that I recommend is this one, but you might choose a different one. But the idea is that you plan out when you're going to hit certain subjects, and you have an idea of how long you're going to study in a day, which days you're studying, which days you're going to take a day off. You've got 3 weeks over Easter. It's actually about 24 days with the inset day. If you can work 20 of those days, you could probably do about 100 hours of work. But you need to plan really how you're going to divide that 100 hours. It's important with these sorts of things, and this is the reason why revision plans tend to fail, is that they're not realistic. So you do need to be realistic about it, but you do need to have some kind of program, some kind of strategy, so that you're not just hoping that you're going to cover what you need to cover. The idea with a plan would be to develop a habit and not to break the chain. So once you can get a couple days into that, you will start feeling good about the fact that you are meeting those commitments you set yourself. So the recommended time, we normally say, is 5 hours per day. And you might have a daily program where you're revising in the morning, activity in the afternoon, and maybe reviewing in the evening. But a great schedule where you could get 5 hours and 15 minutes every day is to just stick to the school day, the 7-day period. Take breaks at the same time, take lunch at the same time, and finish at the same time. And you could do that 5 hours and 15 minutes, I think it is. Now that's the time you have, but you've got that duration, but you now need to fit content into the time you have. And how you're going to do that? Well, I've shown you these before, I think. We've got a selection of kind of revision trackers, but you can make your own. But the idea is you take everything that's going to come up in an exam, and you look at it, and then you audit yourself. You audit your confidence levels. But like I said, that might be smaller. It might be more condensed this year because your teachers might have said, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. So you might need to cross out certain topics if you've got a revision tracker like this, and there's many available on the dcslibrary.com revision kit page. But you want to cross out the stuff that maybe isn't going to be covered or you don't need to cover. But you do need to be careful. I'm not telling you don't revise excretion or selective breeding. I do not know, so this is just example purposes only, but you want to figure out what you need to cover. Then you could audit your knowledge, give it a rating. Are you confident? Are you not so confident? And then you could revise the places where you're weakest. And you keep track of that over time. And revisiting topics is key to space practice. So you want to kind of revisit things if you can, but you've only got a limited amount of time. So again, all this is available at dcslibrary.com/revision kit. And then lastly, I want to talk about, healthy habits and effective environment. So there's certain things that you can do to be best placed to make the most of the work you're doing. So a couple of things. It's shown to be good to designate a study zone and to stick to it. You want to keep it reasonably tidy so that it can be a professional place, different from your bedroom ideally. Limit distractions. You might want to ban mobile phones or the kind of electronics that are prone to distract you. You might want to take your initiative and be proactive with that. You might want to try to mimic the conditions of the exam hall, whatever the exam hall chooses to be. There's no music in the exam hall, so you might need to work out if you tend to revise with music. You're not going to have that when you're doing the test. You might want to mimic the situation you're in to get ready for it. And do not ever underestimate the incredible value of sleep, diet, and exercise. So just to recap, active revision is purposeful, creative, reflective, and part of a process. You should constantly be trying to maximize it as you go through, make it slightly better. Don't just rely on what you think might have worked in the past or what you hope might be working. Kind of make sure you know what you're doing. So this is really just the first part of the help that we want to give you with revision. The second part is that I'm going to come into some workrooms and I'm going to actually look at actual techniques, actual activities you can use to develop your understanding and strengthen and applying your recall. That third part is very, very important because you've got an understanding already, but you need to be strengthening and applying your recall. But theoretically after that, and after getting ready, and after spacing out your practice and getting started, you should be prepared because time is running out, but you can still do this. So the final takeaway, effective revision is worth it. Space practice is the #1 strategy. Spend more time revising away from your books rather than with them. That's counterintuitive, but that will help you strengthen your recall. And then the most useful revision will feel difficult at first, but don't be put off by that. The last thing I wanted to say is that these are, kind of two, kind of meme-ish things to say. But for both quotes, all you need is 20 seconds of insane courage and something great will come of it. And go as far as you can see. When you get there, you'll see further. The whole idea is just getting started. It will feel a lot better once you've started. And hopefully you have started already, but if you're feeling anxious, the real solution to that is getting started and get involved in it. And, kind of, you'll start feeling better, you'll start being energized, and you'll start being able to get to where you need to go. So that's the end of my first part. I have made you late for lessons, which I apologize for. But, I hope you found that useful. If any points you want to speak to me about any of that, please come and see me. But I will see you in your revision workshop when it comes. Thank you very much.